Okay. Can't go until we're live. Did you return something on us?
Is that the dry well?
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna acknowledge that we received a comment.
Tomorrow morning to suck it out. It's been on the schedule for a while.
They understand it's not connected to a sewer.
We're live.
Alright. So, good evening. It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, and this is the regular meeting of the Millwood City Council. I will call this meeting to order, and we will do a roll call. Lisa, can you take a roll call for us?
Yes. Commissioner Stravens,
Present.
Commissioner Sanders,
Present.
Commissioner Van Hees,
Here.
Commissioner Collard,
Here.
Commissioner Beasy. Here. Mayor Freeman.
Present. So please let the record reflect that we have a quorum of 5 with Mr. Stravens participating telephonically this evening. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance now, if you don't mind. Mr. Van Hees, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Our third agenda item tonight is approval of tonight's agenda. We had one small item, which was the addition of the Mayor Pro Tem rotation schedule for 2024 through 2026. This is just we just are continuing to rotate on the regular schedule that we devised for council positions, go in order. So the first half of 2024 will be Mr. Stravens. That's an addition, and then Mr. Kessler from Spokane Valley Fire is here, and he would like to give a brief agency report following Mr. Rydell from West Valley. So are there any questions or comments on tonight's agenda? Any council member wishing to make a change to tonight's agenda? Do I have a motion on tonight's agenda?
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. Hearing none opposed, the tonight's agenda is approved, and so we will begin with agency reports. A presentation from West Valley School District by Mr. Kyle Rydell.
All right, thank you. Couple props tonight. And then I've got a presentation as well. Whoa. There we go. Good thing, yeah. Good thing you got fast reflexes. Perfect. There you go. I love it. Thanks for being Vanna. Again, great opportunity to come out and speak with you as the city council and kind of give you an update in regards to West Valley School District. So our cadence is hoping you're good. Our cadence is really around making sure we're coming in and chatting with you once a year just to give updates in regards to what's going on in the district. So a couple of things. Again, I'm going to talk specifically about 2 slides in the presentation, which we'll get up here shortly. I meant to be here last month, but with some scheduling conflicts, I wasn't able to get here. And so want to just be transparent in regards to a couple of things. Of course, today is our levy and bond vote, but I want to specifically go into some details around a couple of these slides. So if you'll click on that second slide, one of the pieces, again, this is that Google, I think it's that Google document. So sometimes we have challenges with this. Perfect. Nice job, Kevin. Mayor Freeman. So if you go to that second slide, again, just want to do a flyover and make sure there's a little bit of time for some questions and answers. So we're sitting about we're right at 3,384 students in the district. Back pre-COVID, and I know we sometimes say that, right? What was it before COVID? So we were sitting around 3,500 to 3,600 students in the district in all 12 of our programs. So we're a little bit under that, but the last 3 years we have been pretty flatlining right about 3,300 students in the district. Again, focus on tonight is to talk a little bit about that 92 million bond package. There are two measures on the ballot. Hopefully, all of you have submitted your ballot. It's due today. Results will be posted tonight about 8:15. And a couple of pieces in regards to our levy. 99.9% of all activities associated with athletics, extracurricular are funded through that levy. We have a gap in our district where the state funds us for basic education, and then the levy makes up that gap. In West Valley, it's 14.7%, and those are the programs that fill that gap of what it costs to educate all of our kids. $59 million budget spread out to all 12 of our school buildings, and 3,384 students are part of the district. You can go to the next slide. One more, you can go one more. Yeah, we're going to advance a little quicker here tonight. So again, these are the three measures that a school district can put on a ballot. Most of you remember that first green arrow, education programs and operations levies. They used to be called maintenance and operations levies. Back in 2018, they said we need to change the name. And so we changed the name to Education Programs and Operations Levy. We do this every 3 years. So this is that cycle in the district that we come out every 3 years. We also have the next one that's not a green arrow. We have a capital projects levy that is expiring, and that levy helps us with projects. We did a lot of HVAC work in all of our elementaries, so now our HVAC systems are up to date. We've done a few parking lots throughout the district, but we're letting that expire to bridge us to that next arrow, which is school bonds. We are a 20-year bond district. Our last bond was in 2004 that replaced West Valley High School and added 4 gyms and classrooms onto our 4 elementaries. You think back, that's 20 years ago. Now it's time for us to reset that and look at the next 20 years moving forward, which we'll talk about that bond here with this board here in just a second. So next slide, please. Again, 20-year bond district. A couple of pictures there represent that high school, beautiful building, well-constructed, some great features in that school. Of course, it's used tonight. We've got a game over there. A lot of community use in those school spaces. And then the new spaces on the elementaries, you can see in those pictures to the right there, some of that new space 20 years ago. On the next slide here is levy. So we talked about that 14.7% gap in funding. This is a great slide because it shows you where each dollar or each percent of that levy, that $9.8 million goes. So looking at that maroon color, 34% of the levy helps us fund the gap between what it costs in West Valley District to fund teachers, classified staff, administration, and technology staff. 34% of the levy goes to that. That 100% piece I talked about earlier represents 15% of the levy. So that funds extracurriculars, athletics, activities, arts, and transportation, after-school buses, all of our sports teams, all that comes out of that levy as well. The blue there, I almost said green again, blue there, 18%. Is district facilities technology improvements. So we talked a little bit about some of the upkeep, the carpet, the infrastructure in regards to roof replacement. You know, we use a portion of our levies to fund that on an annual basis. The next one is 9%. That's the that kind of goldenrod color to the right there. That's the counselors, nurses, and school safety security. The state gives us half of a person to help with our safety and security. We have 3 people. So 2.5 people come out of the levy. And of course, we could all say that we need more people to come out of that. So it's one of the pieces that we know the state is underfunding us. Another big one is maintenance custodial grounds. This is a huge one, right? Our facilities, our maintenance staff, custodial team does a great job maintaining our facilities. But that's one of the most underfunded units in our district, where 24% of our levy helps fund those staff members and the upkeep of our buildings. So that's why it's so important for our levy throughout our districts. Very similar to neighboring districts, about that 14 to 15 percentile. So that kind of gives you that percentage piece. This is a list of some of those pieces. Again, I think I touched on that, so we can skip that one. All right, so bond. You're doing a great job, thank you. Great name too, Kyle. So again, $92 million bond. 20 years ago, we ran a bond, right? We have a beautiful high school building and then some additions onto our elementary. That has expired. Our taxpayers have paid those off. We had a 51 committee membership that really helped us decide what was going to be the next 20-year projects. And that ranged from students, staff, parents, community members, and some teachers and some custodial people as well. So that's where it came up to that. What do we as a district need to look at moving forward? And so really 4 main projects were established. And in those 4 projects, I'm going to get you to look over here to the right, and then we're going to look back at that. So, and again, I know there's people online too, so I'll try to talk a little bit louder. If that works, Kev?
That's all right.
Okay, perfect. So, projects-wise, and I'll do this in this order just because this is the timeline. So project 1 is kindergarten students joining the elementary. So if some of you remember, about 8 years ago, we moved kindergarten students out of neighborhood schools to the Millwood Kindergarten Center. We moved the preschool that was in Millwood Kindergarten, or in Millwood School, to St. Pascal's. Great facility. The state helped us with some renovation dollars. We lost that lease. And so our lease expires July of 25. So July of 25, we need a spot for our preschool to go. And so our preschool is going to move back to Millwood. The kindergarten students in Millwood are going to move back to their neighborhood elementary schools. One last transition. It's really a positive for the students in kindergarten to be in their neighborhood schools. Our transportation department can't wait for that to happen just because of all the busing that happens currently. So that's project number 1. Completion date needs to be done by 2025. So we have 2 buildings that have sufficient space for kindergartners, OC and Seth Woodard. Pasadena and Ness need some additions onto those 2 buildings to facilitate the space for those kindergarten students. So that has to happen. We're sad we lost the St. Pascal's location, but we have a plan moving forward for what that looks like. Project 2, our committee studied long and hard in regards to what our middle school looks like. Centennial, of course, we all know, it was built in 1964. It was remodeled in 1989 during the centennial. So hence is why we call it Centennial Middle School. It was really the collapse of Park Junior High and Argonne Junior High at the time when they went back to that middle school model. We're one of only a few schools in the Spokane County that have not really addressed our middle schools. So that's a piece that is project number 2. Project number 3, so we have Spokane Valley High School that's located right behind the Wendy's and the car wash on Argonne. It's an old bank building. It's a house for 250 students. And then we also have City School, which is on Valley Way off of Argonne Road. That school is, I think was built in like 1908. It's time to renovate that space. So one of the pieces we talked about is putting both campuses together on that City School campus where we've got plenty of space to be able to pull buses in there. We have parking, sufficient parking for people, especially with high school students. Really looking at 2 wings and then some shared space between where they'd have a gymnasium. Spokane Valley currently does not have a gym. They have a small little cafe about this size of this room. So that's project number 3. Completion 2029. I forgot to tell you the completion of Centennial was 2027. And then district-wide improvements, kind of spreading things out to other buildings throughout the district. We redid 2 parking lots. It's time for us to do 2 other parking lots in the district as well. So that kind of puts that in perspective in regards to what that plan or that sequence of projects would be. So when we look back up there, I'm going to put this down for you just so that you don't have to use your shoulder. Sorry. When we look at that project, again, it's $92 million that we're asking taxpayers for. But again, we talked about that little bit of a bridge from the capital projects levy to help us with our bond. And then looking at what this does is it equips us with about $29 million in state match. So in order to get state match, you have to pass a bond, and then those match dollars can go towards the projects that you have. So Again, those are the 4 projects that were really identified from that committee. We went around to various schools, districts in our community and really got the feedback from other schools around what did they do when they remodeled or replaced one of their middle schools in their district. So that's bond. And again, here's a great slide in regards to what taxpayers paid in 2024, and then what is that estimated tax in 2025? So you take that $370,000 house, which is the median for West Valley. You look at every one of our property owners in the district. It shows that that's the average house. Paying $1,309 in tax this year. And next year, that $370,000 house would be $1,454. So about $12 more a month, or $144 per year in additional tax. So we know it's a tax increase, which is one of the pieces that is that transparency piece, right? Outside of our levy, that is pretty much that renewal levy, that bond does ask for some additional funding that goes along with that. Next slide, please. Tax rates in West Valley. So this is that historical piece that since 2015, we had some of the highest rates throughout the community. We were at $7.12. You combine that EP&O, back then it was called the M&O levy, that little small capital projects levy, and then the bond of $231. Fast forward all the way to the right, 2020, we won't go all the way to the right, 3 back to 2025, where it's $244 for that EP&O levy and $1.49 for that bond. So that's where you get that $393 in regards to the total package. All right. I think, so that's PDC stuff. We can skip through that one. If you want more information, our website is a great spot to go. There's a little bond levy piece there, which then if you click the next slide, it goes into all the information in regards to what I shared tonight, plus some additional details. Knowing that today is election day, we will find out tonight at 8:15 what is Plan A, which I just shared with you, versus what is potentially Plan B. So just like to be, again, transparent and sharing information with you as a council around what's going on in West Valley. Is there some time for questions, Mayor Freeman?
Sure.
Okay.
Questions from the council? Are you interested in taking questions from the audience?
I sure can. You bet.
So does the audience have any questions for Mr. Riddell?
Go ahead. Oh.
I've got one.
Yes.
What's the, on the bonds, what's the interest rate?
Okay, so the question was around interest rates. So we work with DA Davidson, and so it's not a traditional home loan. Interest rates are between that 3 and 4 percentile. And if interest rates drop, that also drops, because when we sell bonds more in the $1 million mark. So usually you get a lower interest rate.
Is it variable over time then, or is it set?
It's set. That is one piece. Great question. So it is set, but if interest rates do drop, we do have the opportunity to refinance, which saves our taxpayers dollars, and then we will lower that tax rate. Great question.
Other questions? Thank you for your time, and I'm sure we will watch the election results with anticipation. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Riddell.
And sorry I need to run, but if there is anything that
Please,
needs
you-
to follow up, I've got another meeting at 6:30.
Go for it.
make it.
Thank you, Kyle.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
So that leads us to Mike Kester from Spokane Valley Fire District. Mr. Kester, please.
My name is Mike Kester, Spokane Valley Fire Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me give a quick synopsis on this last month. Everybody knows we got a real cold snap this last month, and we set a new record for the Spokane Valley Fire Department. We had over 3,100 calls last month. That's over 10 calls per station per day for the whole month. So we were turning and burning. That's kind of good news. Bad news, good news is we covered all of our calls, so. And the other thing I had to report is that the Valley Fire Department got a $30,000 grant from State Farm so we can start training people on urban defense of their property, property defense spaces, so that you can at least defend your property, clearing trees away from the house, keeping your brush down, cleaning up your pine needles, things like this. So we got a $30,000 grant for training for that. And that's about all I had for tonight, so. Any questions?
Questions from the council? Mr. Sander?
Just comment, well, my family was one of the emergency calls, and your staff did a great job.
Great.
Just a very medical, it was an ambulance call, but they did a great job with
Well, I don't mean,
comprehensive, polite, just
yeah,
everything you'd hope to have.
yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna toot our horn a little bit. We're gonna be going back to the Center for Public Service Excellence in Florida. We're gonna be getting an award for, the Spokane Valley Fire Department for outstanding service in this country, not just in the States, but in the country. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So that concludes our reports, presentations for this evening. That brings us to item number 6, public comments concerning action items. City receives comments from, accepts written comments concerning action items, agenda items proposed for final action. Do we have any comments on action items this evening?
No.
We do not. So thank you very much. We do not have an executive session this evening, and so that brings us to item number 8, our action items for this evening. Our first action item is the consent agenda, consisting of the January 2024 council regular meeting minutes, the January 2024 treasurer's report, the January 2024 payroll and claims, the 2023 year-end treasurer's report, 2023 year-end claims, and the mayor pro tem rotation schedule for 2024 through 2026. Would any council member like to address any of those consent agenda items separately this evening? Not seeing or hearing anyone wishing to take any of those items. Separately? Okay, so, with that, do I have a motion on tonight's consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from the council? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Seeing or hearing none opposed, tonight's consent agenda is passed unanimously or accepted unanimously. Thank you. So that brings us to our second action item, Ordinance 540, which is a result of ZTA 2023-01 manufactured home parks.
So, Mayor, Council, after last month's meeting where you chose to affirm the Planning Commission's recommendation, I have brought forth Ordinance 540, which would repeal the manufactured home park standards in Chapter 17.52 and modify the table of permitted uses. It's pretty straightforward. We've looked at it. So are there any questions on the ordinance?
Any questions for Ms. Tanyo on the ordinance as presented?
And one clarification that I know will come up is upon publication of this ordinance, which will be completed by the interim clerk, it will be effective 5 days after publication, so likely end of next week.
Any questions on that from the council? So with no questions for Ms. Tanyo, do I have a motion on ordinance 540 as presented to you this evening?
I'll move approval of ordinance 540 as presented.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, ordinance 540 is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 8C, ZTA 2024-01, Home Businesses Zoning Text Amendment. This is the Planning Commission recommendation to the council. Ms. Tanya.
Yes, so one more for you, 1 month apart here. This one actually was derived when, back in the fall, I don't know if you remember, a vehicle went through the front of Karma Salon. About early December, City of Spokane Valley reached out to us and said, hey, they want to get the storefront rebuilt. So we went through and processed the permit on that. Subsequently to that, the owner of Karma Salon found out that she would not be able to stay in the storefront while it was getting rebuilt. Went through and looked at the code and realized there was a provision in there that you had to be a homeowner in order to have a business in your home, even temporarily. Found out from the Planning Commission actually at the public hearing that that was an oversight. I guess it actually wasn't supposed to be in there originally. So this ordinance cleans all that up, removes the rental prohibition, requires the property owner to sign the home business application, so it's still in the hands of the property owner, and then also clarified some other things in the table of permitted uses, where it basically went through the different, in addition to the home business use, it went through the different uses that are allowed as a home business, just to make a clarification on that. Planning Commission recommended approval of it, and we are bringing it forth to you tonight to either affirm with modifications, or deny, and then I can bring the ordinance back next month.
Questions for Ms. Tanya on this? Thank you very much. So, before the council is, as Ms. Tanya said, as Amanda said, you have three options: affirm, affirm with conditions, or deny. Does council have any pleasure or motion on this item as presented?
And if we affirm, just to have you come back with the ordinance, we'll have another look at this next month.
Well, this would be for, basically if you're approving it. This is where you're making the decision, then I bring the ordinance back as approved.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
I was just gonna-
Okay, Mr. Stravens, please.
Dan, so my take on it is, as long as we have the actual property owner that signs off on it, that gives us enough assurance that if there is some issue, that we can go back to that property owner. It's not just a business owner, it's not just a renter. So I'm comfortable with this change.
Thank you, Mr. Stravens. Other comments?
Mayor, may I make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Wurst.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the question from the council regarding, just to make clear that if you approve tonight, that's the direction to come back with the ordinance. It's not effective tonight. The ordinance is what makes that code change effective. So that would be at the next month's meeting.
So council wishes to approve with conditions, or deny.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from the council? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, ZTA 2024-01 is approved as presented unanimously. Thank you very much. So Amanda, you'll draft this ordinance and bring it to the council at the next meeting for your consideration and approval, if that's your goal. All right, so that concludes our action items for this evening. Thank you all very much. So now we have reports. First report is the treasurer and acting city clerk report from Ms. Matkin.
We are continuing in our efforts to fulfill all the needs of the city right now, so I don't really have a report, but I do have hopes that we will have another personnel member in the near future. We put out an ad for another admin, so we're trying to get our numbers back up so that we can do extra stuff. That's really all I have right now.
So I can back that up from Debbie's staff has been stretched a little thin. So we do have a current administrative assistant position opening, and I am working through the position description for the for advertisement for the city clerk. I hope to have that done this week, and then that will be advertised as well, and we will see what candidates we get, and hopefully be back to a higher staffing level. But both Debbie and Lisa, with assistance from Daniel, have been doing a really good job of keeping up on things. So appreciate it. Our facility. Oh, any questions for Debbie on anything? My apologies. Thank you. So our facilities report from Mr. Shiwi.
So on the 17th of January, we finally received some snow. We measured approximately 8 inches. We plowed the arterials twice that day and then came in that evening and did a full city plow into the next day. For some reason this year, I'm not sure what's to blame, but we've had a lot of street signs taken out. So we've been working on rebuilding those. Along with normal street signs going down, we had our northbound Argonne radar sign taken out. And then also a section of our fencing down here between the railroad right-of-way and Euclid was wiped out, I think last weekend, along with another sign in front of it. They were out there today repairing the fence on that, and we'll probably get up that sign in the next couple of days. I had a Teams meeting with the engineers on the west side of the state and some people from SRTC that wanted information from us on a regional safety action plan that they're developing. They just wanted our input and concerns on traffic-related issues that we're seeing in Millwood. And I spoke to them about a lot of the accidents we've been having at controlled intersections like Grace and Argonne and Liberty and Argonne. And also the issues we've been having with people speeding through neighborhoods to avoid the Trent and Argonne congestion on that intersection. And the last thing I have is an elevator update. I have Clevenger Construction coming in on the 20th of February to start the demolition on the old elevator shaft. Should take only a few days for them to get that all demoed out, and then Vertical Options will come in, something with code and stuff. They have to come in and actually remove the old lift themselves. After that's done, then staff and I can start getting the old floor jackhammered up and removed and re-pour it about 3 inches lower. So when they come to put that new lift in, it'll just be a smooth transition with no ramp up into the wheel lift. And that's pretty much what I got.
Questions for Kyle? Mr. Stander?
Mayor, I have a question.
Hey, Mr. Stravens, Mr. Stander got to you first, so we're going to go with Dan
Okay.
first, then you.
Very good.
We received the input from the Schwedas on their drainage issue.
Yes, there is a dry well in front of apartment complex that we received an email on about, I believe, 5 weeks ago. And we went over and looked at it. There is definitely drainage issues over there. I had put in a call a while ago to have a Vector truck come out and suck it out. And I had to lean on them a little bit and just got confirmation today that they will be out tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. to suck it out. I also replied in his email that if this scenario does not work, the next situation we have to do is we have to actually excavate and rehab that dry well. Most of the dry wells in town put in a long time ago, and they don't have the proper drain rock and filter fabric around them. So the fines and everything from our natural soil just packs all those holes in the dry well, and they can't perk. So I told them, if that's the scenario, we're gonna have to wait longer into the springtime when the asphalt plants open back up so we can repave around it. And when the soil isn't so saturated that we can get compaction when we do backfill it. So, but we'll try this first. It's a cost-effective solution and it might work.
That, just a couple notes, that dry well is problematic anyway because it's not in a fully paved area, so it does get a lot of runoff from just general mud and uncompacted surface. And there was some discussion a while ago if that was really, is that really our dry well?
We were looking on Scout and stuff, and it does appear like it is pretty much in line with the power poles and stuff, so I think it's a pretty safe assumption it is.
But it's obviously an older dry well, and so the issue with that for folks to remember as the council is that none of our dry wells drain to any type of sewer line. They are simply infiltration galleries, so it doesn't, once that surrounding soil in that, are we all double stacks or are we a single stacks?
There's singles, there's even a couple areas over in my neighborhood over here that they literally just put a cone in the ground. So it's, 3.5 feet deep.
So, anytime we do those, dry well upgrades, it's problematic because type 5 dry wells are now, you're not supposed to put in anymore. You're not supposed to put them in anymore. You can rehab them for what they are, but with some of ours constructed, it's a push to go from a single stack to a double stack, which is what we probably should have everywhere. So there are some issues with those dry wells. Mr. Stravens.
Kyle, are we looking at doing some pruning this year per the tree board for street trees?
Yes, we have money budgeted, but we also, I think I talked about it last month's council meeting, we put in for a grant that should do or will do all of our pruning on all of our trees on city properties. All pruning and tree removal too.
And that will start soon, won't it, for pruning?
I'm hoping so. We get confirmation that we get approved for the grant on the 20th of February, I believe. And so after that, I believe, we should be able to move forward pretty quickly. We gotta do our due diligence and get bids through the MRSC roster and stuff, but after that, springtime.
And we do have a document coming back at the next meeting for council approval for our tree plan, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so there will be more on the trees as well.
Temperatures, we ended up having 6 service line freeze ups, and we had to replace 4 of the meters. They broke from not having people running their water and getting the lines frozen. We had a bid opening for the water line project, and we had 2 different contractors bid on the project. We also had a walkthrough with Welch and the contractors, see if they had any questions. So next council meeting, Welch is gonna come here and present the big bid recommendation for that project. We'll get going on that. We had a water main break on the 8400 block of Liberty too. That was a 6-inch cast iron pipe. So we got that all dug up and fixed. Back in order. Everything in sewers looking good. We got AAA coming out tomorrow, so they're gonna suck out the lift stations and get all the grease and junk out of there.
Any other questions for Matt?
Do we have the generator wired up yet?
We're on their schedule. They said about 2 or 3 weeks they'd probably be out.
The bid openings were
We had 2.
under engineer estimate.
Yeah, or a little bit over.
Well,
It was-
No. No, they were not under engineer's estimate.
No, they were not.
They were within
10%.
10%,
They were within.
which is good because the last time when we prepared the engineer's estimate, it was
Oh,
fall of 2023. So the fact that it was only 10% over is pretty decent.
in 6 months,
Yeah,
definitely.
with these prices. Other questions? Mr. Sander?
So, you're dealing with the Starbucks folks. On your report, you talked about the Trent Cafe. Is this the same building, the same, 2 businesses or 1 business?
The project name is Trent Cafe. Commonly, everybody knows it as the new Starbucks.
Okay. I was confused. I thought we had two new businesses.
Nope.
I could have breakfast and lunch.
Still can.
Well, that's dinner, next door.
Any other questions for Matt? Thank you very much. So now we have Ms. Tanyo with our planning report for this evening.
Since it's been in your packet, I'm just gonna cover a few items on it in a little more detail. So yes, Trent Cafe, the civil plans, were submitted and reviewed. And, this will be in next month's update, but as of today, I approved the site plan and the civil plans have been approved. We are now, forwarding for sewer and water permits and, payment of fees. So they should have permits very soon. I know Spokane Valley is just about done with their review. There was just a couple things they needed. So I do not know the date of when that will break ground, but I assume it'll be shortly after permit issuance. Discussed land use options for 3420 North Marguerite. This is a parcel that's been sitting vacant for decades and met with the property owners on their options, what they could do with a parcel aggregation, accessory dwelling unit, or building a home on the vacant lot. So we met and discussed that, and they're looking at their options. The North 40 boundary line adjustment to aggregate the two parcels, that's finally came back in, and it'll be ready to go as soon as I get a site plan that's in a recordable format. And so they're working on that. I'm going to skip down real quick and then come back to the big one. Land capacity analysis, I've completed the C1 zone, I'm into the C2 zone, and then heading towards I and the residential will be my last ones. It's our first step in the required periodic update process for the comprehensive plan. The PTAC has made recommendations for population allocations that will be going to steering committee of elected officials. And this will actually play into that because you're set with a percentage. I want to say 45 people is what they were projecting for Millwood. This will adjust that. And I've already put them on notice that we have significantly underutilized lands. And so it'll require some potential adjustment to the population allocation. And finally, 10218 East Empire Avenue, Magnolia Village, Manufactured Home Park 2024-01. Site plan review and application. It did come back in. It has a revised site plan. It is proposed now at 20 units, not 24, and they are a cottage style. Product is what the typical designs they have submitted. I met with the applicant and requested a voluntary, of course, but he was willing to comply. He submitted the design typicals to me. Those will be included in the notice of application packet that will go out to the public. It has been deemed a complete application. It came in on January 26th, so it does fall under the now what will be in a week or so removed manufactured home park standards, but I do have to review it under those standards. And we are proposing to issue the notice of application on February 20th or 21st. I will be posting everything on the website under public notices, so it'll have the application packet, the typical designs, the site plan, everything on there. And then I talked with the applicant on projects where I know there's going to be a lot of questions from the public. In the past, I have proposed neighborhood meetings. The applicant was open to that. And so I'll be conducting a neighborhood meeting scheduled for February 23rd, a Friday at 1 o'clock here at City Hall. That was scheduled based on availability for myself and the applicant. And then also trying to think outside of a night meeting what the option would be for working folks so that they don't have to take off midweek. So it seemed like Friday afternoon was the next best option for that. This is a quasi-judicial process. It's a director decision that can then be appealed to council. So I will defer to the city attorney, but I don't believe the city council can be involved in the neighborhood meeting since you are the appeal body for that. But I welcome members of the public to come and learn about the project and gather information during the notice of application comment period. That is my report.
So first, before we have any questions, Mr. Worst, do you wish to make any comments to the council based on presentation of this plan application?
Nothing that really hasn't already been said by the planner. I would strongly reiterate her comments regarding the quasi-judicial nature of this. I think if history is any indicator of the future, you may likely, the council may likely see this appealed to it, and I would ask that you continue to remain in a position where, if you're serving as an appellate body, that you are sitting on in an objective basis, reviewing only the record before you, which would mean attendance at a neighborhood meeting or ex parte discussions on it or anything of that nature. Are technically by law prohibited, and we will ask that those potential ex parte discussions or conflicts of interest that could be perceived as a conflict of interest be disclosed if there is a appellate proceeding in the future.
Any questions for Brian on that? All right. Thank you, Mr. Worst. So,
thank you.
Comments or questions from Ms. Kenya? Ms. Beesey.
Yes, thank you for having the neighborhood meetings. I think that that's a super proactive approach. Applaud that. You mentioned in your report that there is excess land. What did you mean by that?
So underutilized land. So for the land capacity analysis, I have to look by zone, sorry, looking over there.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I have to look at each zone and determine whether there's vacant land available, which is essentially anything that has an improvement of $5,000 or less. So if it just had a shed on it, it'd be considered vacant land. Then there's underutilized land, and that would fall into the commercial industrial categories as well. Underutilized is when you have a building that is not more than 4 times the land value. And there's quite a few actually where the building is 200,000 and the land is valued at 100,000. So I had to check that off as underutilized. So that's the initial part of the review process. From there, I go through and determine, is it actually going to be available for development in the 20-year time frame or not? That'll be the next steps after I get through all the preliminary evaluations. But off the top of my head, I want to say on the C1 zone, about 60 to 70% came in as underutilized.
So these are the commercial. So we're not talking about like individual people's property, are we?
Not yet.
Anything classified as a single-family residence or that is a single-family residential use in a commercial zone automatically is deemed as underutilized. May not be developable, they may not want to develop it, but I have to deem it as underutilized.
But she has not done the land analysis on any of the UR zones.
So when you do the UR zones, if the building on the property is not deemed to be four times the amount of the property value, then we would be underutilizing our land?
I have to look at the residential in a little separate way. I focused on the commercial first because it's a little easier to look at. Residential has a little bit different criteria, so I'll come back and report more on that. I just wanted to cover the commercial component tonight.
And what's the consequence if your land is just deemed as being underutilized? Just we make note of it.
Mm-hmm. Make note of it, yeah. And it means that we can accommodate this additional population if that land was developable within the 20-year time frame.
I appreciate that, your explanations.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Amanda?
Mayor, I have a question.
Mr. Stravens.
Yep. So Amanda, in terms of just generally speaking, you mentioned Magnolia Village changed to a cottage style. Is that tiny homes then? Is that the concept?
It's being processed as a manufactured home park, but the design is more similar to a cottage or a tiny home type product. This is actually going to be very common here in the Eastern Washington and within the next few years because it is concurrent with more of what you're seeing out of the state legislature and the House bills on model ordinance for middle housing. So it has definitely a different design to it. They are not trailers that are being proposed. And so it's using the manufactured home park processing method, but the product, I would say, is a lot higher than what could be there under a different developer.
All right, thank you. And I do commend you for, I think it's really important to have community meetings, so I think that's a great idea. So very good idea on your part to set that up. Thank you.
So one of the things while we're here in Amanda's report is I would like to work to schedule with the council and the planning commission a joint council planning commission meeting that I would like to target for April. And the reason why targeting for April is Amanda's obviously going to have some things busy with, not just for us, but other things, and we've got things going on. But I need her to get some time to prepare, because what I'd like her to do is give a rundown of where land use is going, particularly as she was saying in here, the cottage style home for missing middle homes. That may be something that is just implemented or will be implemented at the state level, correct?
Yes, so it literally just came out a few weeks ago. Department of Commerce worked to put out a model ordinance based on House Bill 1110 that was passed. And a quick summary, we are required to plan. We're in a type C or a number 3, depending on how you look at it, community of under 25,000. And so you have to look at least 2 dwelling units per lot. That can be combined with an ADU ordinance, so it can be basically 2 to 3 per lot. They can work in conjunction. And then you have to look at up to 6 middle housing types. I have gone through and highlighted some in the ordinance that I think would be the best fit for Millwood, and they are not the 3-story apartments that are also in the list. They are duplex, triplex, fourplex, cottage housing, courtyard apartment, and townhouses.
So I think it's important going forward, in light of the overall comprehensive use plan update that will have to be done in 2025, the desire of the state legislature to accommodate missing middle homes, and our position, even though we are a small city, we fall under that 20,000 resident threshold. We are within the UGA. So there are a number of potential, there are a few potential legislative bills out that will, regardless of the size of the municipality, they will, because we are within the UGA, we will be affected on that basis. So, but I want to give Amanda some time to sort through the legislation that's both current, out there, may likely be passed by the time we get to April. There are a couple bills in the House, and then come back to both council and planning commission to discuss that and discuss land use, as she'll have a better handle on the land capacity analysis, things like that. And then how council wants to work with planning commission to think about what we want to do for our comprehensive plan update in conjunction with the county's comprehensive plan update. So I will be reaching out, working with Amanda, and looking to set a special meeting in April that will be it'll just be a working session, but get planning and the council together in that. So I'll keep you folks apprised of that. Any other questions? All right, so legal report, Mr. Worst in the ether.
Yeah, in the ether. Yeah, my apologies, folks, for not being able to attend. I'm isolating due to a certain health reason. So, and bored out of my mind. The only 2 things really to address, I did address with the council last month, that there was a potential code enforcement matter that we were ready to bring forward regarding 2 shops that had been combined into one oversized shop at 3315 North Woodruff. I've been in contact with the property owner, not nearly as much as I'd like to have been. We played phone tag significantly, but we did have some discussions last week. Initial plan is to coordinate with city code enforcement and to do a site inspection and to fully understand what is necessary for compliance. The property owner has indicated that he would much rather comply than be sued, and consistent with the city's policy, I think we want to pursue that route. So I'm going to hold on asking for any authorization for litigation on that one. But in the flavor of litigation, we do have the condemnation proceedings pending with the Inland Empire paper. We had a mediation scheduled for last week, but the mediator was unable to attend due to health reasons. We have scrambled, but also found a suitable, a qualified, I don't want to say suitable, a very well qualified, experienced mediator, John Riseborough, to conduct a mediation next Tuesday. And IEP has agreed to meet us and hopefully at least whittle some of this case away so the city can proceed forward with what it needs to do and get back on track on planning the Argonne project. And again, with fingers crossed, maybe bring this matter to closure. So with that, happy to answer any questions on those matters or any other matter.
Questions for Mr. Wurst? No questions for you, Brian. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
For that, I'll move on to the mayor's report. I had a personal matter last month and don't have much to report other than I have reached out to the undersheriff, Kevin. Can't remember his last name now, sorry. Kevin Ritchie, thank you very much. And we are setting up a meeting to discuss the different law enforcement contract model for 1 FTE. So hopefully we'll have some progress on that as the months go forward. I will be attending the IEP mediation on Tuesday the 20th. And other than that, any questions for me? All right, so that closes our reports tonight. Thank you. In your packets are the sheriff's reports for both December 2023 and January 2024. So our full-on year-end sheriff's report and the first of 2024. This brings us to the time for public remarks. We got a few. So tonight for public remarks, we have, we did receive one public remark by email, which was from Mr. Shweta regarding the dry well, which Mr. Shiwi discussed. So public remarks are an opportunity for citizens to direct the council, either in person or by submitting their remarks to Remarks@Millwood Law. We ask that in-person speakers limit themselves to 2 minutes and follow the citizen participation guidelines policies posted on the City of Millwood website or available at City Hall. So first up is LaDonna Dement. Who's Dement?
Okay, LaDonna Dement at 10306 East Empire, and now that you kind of talked about the new project we saw in the in the packet regarding, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, I'm always nervous. I'm regarding the MHP 2024-01. So now that you've kind of made given us some information, some of this doesn't, but please forgive me because I might be ignorant on some of this stuff, so I apologize, so bear with me. We're still a little concerned about this because even though it sounds like a better deal, it sounds like they've just reduced things. So we just kind of want to know, is it going to be, if they're cottages, are they going to be pre-built so it will be owned? Are they going to be pre-built and rented? Are they going to be just bring your own cottage in and you're going to rent? And then it sounds like there might be some higher standards maybe, so that's a good thing. However, if it's just bring your own thing in, so our concerns would still be about, is it going to be if it's going to be rentals, is it going to be managed or not managed? Kind of like before, there wasn't going to be any management of it and you could bring almost anything in you wanted. So we just still have concerns about crime, devalue a property if these things start going bad. And then it also does not meet the standard or whatever that was called, I can't remember of it, to keep our side of, not our side, whole Millwood, but the east side of Millwood in a more rural feel. So what else do I have here really quick? I think I kind of said everything I needed to say. I don't know if there's anything else you can tell us about it. And then the other thing, I'm hoping that we can include the council before anything is decided and signed, that the council could maybe be more involved than they were at the last time. Because the last time it was just like the planning commission, I think, made the call, and then you guys just got to vote on it. And we're hoping maybe that, if possible, the neighborhood, like you are trying to do with the meetings, be more involved in what's, a little more involved in what's going on than the last time, so.
So I will respond to that last comment.
Okay,
Because of the unique nature that they are the hearing body, they cannot be involved.
okay,
Because they would hear if there is an appeal,
okay.
they would have to they would have to hear that appeal, and the applicant has rights as well as the appellant has their rights.
And then were they allowed to do this now and still make it under the home park site plan because it was kind of grandfathered in prior to the new decision not to allow these anymore, or not to allow mobile home parks anyway?
Yes.
Okay. So I just don't know what all the criteria is, so if there's any way we can know what all the criteria, I mean, maybe it is there somewhere and I'm just ignorant of where to find it. How you make your decisions on how you're gonna allow this or not, so it just kind of would be nice if we all knew a little bit more about it, that too, so.
I think that the planning commission will work with our the planner.
No,
because it's
no.
obvious that right, it's not the planning commission. This is strictly the city planner because this is an administrative decision.
Okay,
Did I get that right, Brian?
You did, yeah. The criteria is the manufactured housing chapter that existed in the city code when the application was filed and deemed final, which is the code provision that was repealed this evening, but it was in effect when the city received the application. So that's going to be the criteria, as well as all of the other standard criteria that was applicable under Title 17 of the city code.
and maybe you
I
can't.
think all of that will be found in the, I'm sorry, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just said, maybe, I can't ask this question, but did somebody provide this information to them that they could still do it, or did they ask? Their application, they just brought their application in, okay. Just curious.
Yeah, and I guess I do need to remind the council and the mayor that this is an open application. So to the extent we're engaging in question and answering during public comment, that our public comment process does not allow for that. So what we've typically done in the past, Mayor, is certainly advised citizens with questions to contact appropriate city staff with these questions.
So just, okay, we'll get a hold of Amanda then, thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Thank you. So next is Winston Wiggins. Mr. Wiggins.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, Winston Wiggins, 9925 East Alton. I want to follow up on a couple of things LaDonna said really quick, and then I have one other item. But I sort of understand what you're saying, administrative decision, don't talk to the council. But on the other hand, the council they are the representatives, the elected representatives of the people. It's important that I think that the council members hear what the people think and their thoughts. And it of something of this magnitude, frankly, which has this amount of impact on adjacent landowners in the community at large, it just seems to me personally, that should not be assigned to a single individual to make that decision. That the council ought to be involved, not just as a judicial body, but they ought to be involved in oversight of that decision without an appeal. That's my opinion. The other thing, and this is a question that I will ask the council members. I won't ask you individually, But some of you know, I have routinely emailed individual council members at various times. Sometimes I get a response. Other council members, I've never even had an acknowledgement. It came to my attention in the last couple of weeks that at least some council members are not able to access their city email address. So if you can't do that, because that's where I've been sending emails as they come. I don't blanket, I send them to individuals. If you cannot access that website, would you please tell me? If you don't want to engage in email discussion, that's fine. But if you could at least say, thanks, got it, that I know whatever I've thought has come in. So I would really like to know if you don't, because this came as a shock to me, that I said, why haven't you ever responded? Well, I can't get that email. And so that individual was kind enough to give me his personal email, and so I appreciate that. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to Todd Beasy. Mr. Beasy.
Thank you, Mayor Freeman. The month of March is going to be an exciting time here in Millwood. The Spokane County Library District is partnering with the Millwood history enthusiasts for 4 events on history of Millwood. One of them is Millwood History Exhibit that will be at the Argonne Library, and it'll have photos of historic significance, and it'll be there for the whole month of March. There'll be a presentation on Saturday, March 9th at the library called Millwood Traveling Back in Time. They'll discuss interesting residents, milestones, and it'll give you a good look at the history. Then there'll be another presentation on Saturday, March 23rd at the Argonne Library, and this is the mid-century world of Millwood. It'll explore the style of Millwood homes built before World War II, commonly known as mid-century modern. And you can hear about local shops and businesses of the time and meet the citizens and see how they spent their time 1950s through 1960s. And then on Saturday, May 4th, the Millwood Historic Walking Tour. And this is a guided tour through the historic district here, and registration is required for that. So you need to register for that. Okay, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Beasy.
Thank you.
So open up for anyone else wishing to make public comment this evening.
So, Jean Pearson, I live at 10202 East Empire Avenue. And my concern still on this whole thing going in up the road is traffic still. I emailed just last week about traffic, people still coming through the stop sign, speeding, being noisy, kids being at the stop sign. This is all happening during, well, kids in the mornings and the afternoons. And putting in another possible 80 cars, maybe more, right there at the intersection. I think we really need to focus on doing something with traffic before we put that many more cars on the road. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Second call for public comment or public remarks.
One thing I forgot, I have information flyers that you can have after the meeting is adjourned.
Ken Bain, 9729 East Dalton. One thing I'm confused about this Magnolia project is it's a UR1 zone, and that single-family residence on large lots is what the definition is under the zoning code. And I don't see at all how this fits that definition and why we should give them a conditional variance or whatever you call it to allow this project at all, since it doesn't fall within the zoning code of UR1. That's my comment.
Thank you. Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Seeing nobody else rise, we will close the public remarks. Sorry, public comments. That brings us to council remarks. Mr. Stravens, any remarks?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So for our last meeting, I would like to, with the permission of council, direct the staff to coordinate a retreat for council where we can, each of us, bring just a couple of items that we'd like to accomplish this year as a council. And so it's policy type decisions, not very specific, but that 30,000 foot flyover where we say this is what we'd like to talk about. Obviously, I talked about traffic. So I would propose something mid-March, and we would allow the staff enough time. Do a retreat. I think it would be advantageous to just have the council. We can invite the mayor to attend. So it'd be all elected officials discussing how we want to direct policy.
So I think Mr. Stravens' point is well taken. I think that would be a good idea for council. What I will do is work with staff here. I think the best thing would be, I brainstorm with staff here. I don't think staff is the appropriate individual or group to lead this. So what I would like to ask the council is there are some really good policy facilitators in Spokane, people who can kind of come in and, get some ideas and take it from a vision or policy type statements, work it into something that might be more of a strategy base, and then some ideas of some concrete things that maybe you want to bring out of that, do more of a fact finding and brainstorming session to kind of get some of these ideas. The last couple council meetings, I think that council members have really expressed that they want to have more of a vision and leadership role in making policy for the city. And so I think this is a really good start. I think what council should be doing is, as Mr. Straven said, sometime in March, it would be mid to late March. Start thinking of some times that would be good. Typically, something like this is done usually off-site. It is a public meeting, but it's also not a meeting where there's any action items, things like that. It's more of a free-flowing discussion led by a moderator. So if you folks could be thinking about your schedules for, let's say, the last 2 weeks in March, what you're, and then email those in. Be a good time for you to check if your emails work, so we can fix those if they're not. Get those into the city and get those times would be good. We can start pulling those times together. I can start finding somebody who I think would moderate that. And then we can come up with some ground rules after I talk to the moderator and get some information out to you folks and pull information and stuff together. So I think that's a great first step for council to begin. So thank you, Councilmember Stravens, for that. And I will work with staff to begin rolling that rock forward. I do think, though, that the best thing that we can get from you folks is times when people are available so we can coordinate schedules. Mr. Sander.
Well, I think to follow up on Kelly and the mayor's comments, will this, we need to figure out, is this an evening or a half a day, all day type of session? I would hope would be more than an hour. So probably a good half day session, and that'll help us with our calendars, so.
Typically they are, it's either 8 to noon or 1 to 4, 1 to 5 sort of thing. They are more than an hour. It gives plenty of opportunity. You got to figure that each council member is going to take about 45 minutes, and there'll be about 45 minutes of work for each council member. So that's kind of a good thing. So yeah, we're looking at a half day someplace.
And then will city staff be the keeper of wild ideas that we have between now and then? Or do we wait? I mean, what's our, besides the dates?
So dates would start. What I would do is I will find and engage a policy facilitator. And that person typically has a way to do these sorts of things. This is not an uncommon practice at Cheney, Liberty Lake, Medical Lake, things like that. So we can get somebody like who facilitates those types of things and get that information out to you so folks can do their homework beforehand. That's kind of why we need this amount of time.
So as we're thinking of things, we keep them to ourselves.
Yes, as you're writing down things, but this is more of a start here and move here. It's as I would say, it's more a thing of we need traffic calming or traffic control, and then talk about those ideas and then distill that out and then assign different tasks to people. It's not come in and say, we need a new stop sign at such and such intersection. That's kind of not really what we're thinking about here, because this is much more of a big picture vision that we can take tasks out of for the long term. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Kevin? Nope.
Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, and my idea originally is that we would, as a council, that we'd agree on one topic, that we could actually, see measurable gains on this year. And so instead of saying, okay, we're gonna look at 5 things or 4 things, I'm hoping that we could come up with one thing this year, and we talk about future things as well, but one thing where we can actually see measurable gains, right? And so since I've been in Millwood since 1997, we've all talked about traffic, and we keep on talking about traffic, and so my hope is that we would have overview type things, whether it's traffic or improve the business district, big picture items, and we come together as a council. I don't need 45 minutes, to be honest. If we need a facilitator, but I think the 6 of us or 5 of us could come to agreement saying, yep, I think we should talk about this and we should direct staff in this direction. So I like the idea of a facilitator, but I'm also fiscally responsible too. So if we can do it ourselves, I'm fine with that too.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Stravens. Let's go to Ms. Besey for her remarks.
My general remarks are the participating in this conversation.
Well, I mean, do you want to respond to, do you want time for your remarks, or do you want to talk to
I have
Dan?
my own separate remarks that I will address when my time is for it, but I also want to participate in this conversation that's going on right now.
Why don't you just take the whole thing? No, seriously.
So, in response to Kelly, what I heard Kelly say is, hey, I would like to talk to my fellow council members about a retreat. And then he kind of alluded that there was some staff involvement. I was waiting for the council to talk, but then you jumped in and said, oh, this is what we're gonna do. I'll hire a policy person. And one of my comments was, I feel sometimes there's a lacking of us being able to talk, and where is that arena happen? Because I know we're not supposed to be like going to each other's houses and talking off the record, and I never have in the 7 years I've served. But some of the things, and I'll dovetail now into my comments, last meeting we voted on a fee schedule. I have heard some public rumblings about that. I've never participated in a comment with a public person, but I have been listening to what people have been saying. And honestly, I don't, if the fee schedule is as such that it's cost prohibitive for people to appeal decisions that are made, I feel that's an injustice. I have talked to a staff member about that, as I felt was my direction. What you have directed us is we're allowed to talk to staff members, not each other. And I found out the following information. You know, we're trying to do this fee schedule so that we can recapture money. There shouldn't be an administrative burden that the city's constantly that means that the taxpayers subsidizing a bunch of administrative costs. So we would have to look at how does that balance out. And I've had some thoughts over the last month. We did vote on the variance. Nobody was complaining about the variance. We were out of compliance. Apparently we were out of the norm of what the variance fees were, but we voted to reduce the variance fees and then increase the appeals fees. The other thing is I had asked the city people, because I understand we don't, well, what about developers? They might just endlessly appeal everything. And do we really want the taxpayers? Is there a way that we can look to say, okay, if you're a citizen of Millwood, this is your fee to appeal something. If you're an outsider, this is your fee to appeal something. I have had all these questions. I've gotten them answered by the city people, the staff. I would love to understand what my fellow councilors feel. Do you want me all drafting independently a resolution to what we passed and then just bringing it and springing it on us? Or is there ever a milieu that we are able to talk and I can kind of find out, hey, did this strike anyone else as interesting? Is this something we want to come together with and maybe look at, should we file a resolution to what we did? Where is that opportunity for us to have those talks? Is that just using our end of session time? Because if so, I'm opening up similar to Kelly. I'd love to hear what the rest of y'all think.
So your time here is the opportunity to discuss amongst yourselves. If you want a different venue to do that, it has to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. So if you want to schedule a special meeting where it is simply a work session, where there's no action items, where it's a work session, and have a discussion, you have to have some type, because it's a special meeting, you have to have an agenda. That agenda can't change because it has to be a specific meeting itinerary.
I understand, but I guess my preference, I don't want a special meeting. My preference though is if Kelly says, hey, fellow counselors, I'd like to hear your ideas on this topic. I'm using my public remarks time to bring up, that it's not immediately then this is what we're doing, because that's often what happens. Somebody says something, then you guys retort, then we move on to the next person. And so that's
Well, first of all, it's not them that retorts, it's me that retorts.
Correct.
So staff is just staff. I'm the mayor. And so what I'm trying to do is, we have one meeting a month.
I understand.
This body has one meeting a month. So I'm trying to take the best use of your 5 members' time. If you wish to have a free-flowing discussion here, it's your time. Have at it.
Perfect. Have you guys heard public comments, or am I just seriously the only person that's heard public comments on the fee table? And if so, is there anything you guys want to contribute, or is this something that I should just be thinking about on my own?
I think in some instances, having a in Millwood, it's this, resident, non-resident fee for stuff.
I don't know if that's legal, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking.
I'm saying well, we can do offsite meetings or special meetings, like Kevin said, for these controversial issues.
Yeah.
To go into the details. The fee schedule itself, I haven't heard feedback,
Okay.
but There's been past instances of us not charging enough and all of the taxpayers end up subsidizing somebody's activity. Like you said, the developers could come in and endlessly appeal things if it was a $50 fee. And it would eat up all of our staff time, and we're already short-staffed as it is.
I 100% agree.
So
I'm not saying we don't communicate, I'm just saying if we have controversial issues, we can have special meetings to discuss that.
I guess I've heard it from a few people. Again, I've not participated in public conversations. If there's no, I would actually like us to relook at the fee schedule that we voted on and see if there is a way to change the appealing, or at least have a discussion around the appealing of whatever venue that is at whatever time that is. I would like to have that discussion with my fellow city council people and whomever else is supposed to be included.
Yeah, I certainly heard at the meeting or after the meeting, after the last resolution and afterwards that, that's bothersome, that the amount for citizens to be involved. But like Sean mentioned, and I think Brian had mentioned, I don't know if that's legal.
Exactly, and I've not
Two
been.
different classes of input, but there must be some way to be able to hear that input. And unfortunately, we can't hear it, until it becomes appealed, but I mean, or a decision, like the land use decisions, but for the resolution for the rate schedule, that's our decision. And all the hard work that goes into seeing how much time is actually spent for recouping those costs. How we can apply that is I think we need to just explore that some more. There's got to be some other ways to do that.
because what I would say is if you want to talk about fees, then from the city side, we need to understand that, because there's data that we need to bring back to you and say, hey, you need to understand. I mean, I can tell you that we have spent on the appeal, we have spent in excess of $35,000 on the appeal. Us, the city, has spent that money of $35,000 for the appeal. And that, I believe, was that staff time or was that just legal fees?
Just legal fees.
That's just legal fees. That's not the staff time directed to that. So those sorts of things need to be brought to the council to say, this is the actual nuts and bolts of what it takes when we have an appeal come through. That's why we have this. So if those are things we want to talk about, or you want to talk about, great, but we need time to give that data back to you so you have a full understanding, other than just people upset about fees.
I 100% agree, and I 100% agree with the whole antecedent of why we even looked at it. We have to recapture those costs. It has to be cost neutral. I get that. I would like to explore that, and first of all, I think are we allowed to just ask Brian, is what I just proposed legal? Because if it's not legal, we can just remove that from the idea table.
I don't know if Brian has it. I don't know if Brian has an answer right now.
In terms of the fees or the method of communication, or
Fees.
I mean, we've got a couple different points.
Just the fees.
Well,
Is it
so
legal to charge citizens one administrative appellate appeals fee and non-citizens another fee?
Generally speaking, no. The only way that you can justify a fee difference, whether it's based on citizenship or city resident versus non-city resident or whatever it might be, Washington law requires that you have some sort of reasonable justification or a basis in RCW to do it. A perfect example right now is the litigation that's working its way through the appellate court system involving the city of Spokane's resident water rates and non-resident water rates. That's coming back on appeal because the city of Spokane lost on appeal for, at least initially, on their justification for trying to justify a non-resident water rate. Same thing applies as to any sort of service, process, or anything else that's offered by the city. If there isn't a basis to justify the cost or the expense, then it's not an allowable fee under the police powers of the city, and it becomes an unlawful tax. So the flip side of that is any, to the extent that you, the city, are not charging a fee and otherwise allowing it to be subsidized or paid by others within the city, that ventures into the gifting of public funds under Article 8, Section 7 of the state constitution. So there's definitely on the fees and charges, there's a definite balance that needs to be struck. To the extent that the city council wishes to reevaluate any fees, that's loud and clear. I think I've heard that loud and clear right now, that if there is a fee that was previously approved that you'd like to have reevaluated, I think it's up to the city staff and the mayor and myself to come forward and explain why that fee was, calculated and determined. If the city council wishes to change that fee or to come up with something different, you just got to have a reasonable justification for doing it. And if we're going to eliminate this fee for everybody in the city, then that's what it is. If we're going to minimize this fee for everybody in the city, that's what it is.
Thank you so much. My intention to here today wasn't to direct that we necessarily change it, because I understand why you guys, why that was brought before us, but more to find out, should we have an is there a way that, should we relook at the way that it's not just all on one fee, the appeals fee?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing nods. You're telling me to ask Mayor if he can have something prepared through the city, or how would you?
So do you, what fees do you want?
Specifically the appeals fee. Something was happening. I don't want a situation where something's happening in someone's neighborhood. I understand then you open the door, if you can't do that, that developers can also appeal you to no ends. But I don't feel like if something's happening in people's neighborhood, we should silence them by a prohibitive fee of 10 or multiple thousands of dollars to appeal that. That's what I'm wanting to look at. But I also understand we have the constraint of we have to be net neutral, that we have to recapture all fees. So if it's not on that fee, it's going to be on some other fees. So I'm trying to have a conversation.
I do know that it's in the code that we have to recoup the fees.
Correct.
So that would have to be changed as well.
I hear that. Well, I actually think that I'm not challenging that. If we have, we have to recoup fees. It shouldn't be subsidized.
So we can look at the appeals fees. We can look at the basis for the appeals fees being charged. We don't get a lot of these types of appeals. So that is one thing. We don't get a lot of these types of appeals. We have one here. We can show what the fees, what the costs we've incurred are to date, and look at the proportionality of that. And I would say, based on staffing, hopefully we'll have something for you at the next meeting.
Fair. I just want to have the conversation. Maybe what we did was exactly what needed to be done, but I do want to investigate it again. End of my time.
If I can, Mayor, if I can weigh in real quick.
So, hey, Kelly, let's let Andy and Sean get through. So, Mr. Van Hees,
Sounds good.
remarks?
I have nothing.
Mr. Culler?
Thanks to city staff for making it with shorthand.
So, Mr. Stravens, please.
I was just going to say, we can, in a policy, in a retreat, we can talk about things like that, Shauna. So we can talk about big ticket items, but I think this is a conversation we really should have had at that fee. So, I'm going to encourage all members that let's have that open, honest discussion, and no matter how robust that discussion is, let's bring that up. I think that to go back and redo things, we heard the cost of the appeal, $35,000 for attorney's fees, and we're charging $26.50 or something. So, but we can talk about that as a policy. I think that, you know, if we want to talk about that as a policy decision at a retreat, I think that's perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Sander?
I think we should go forth with this, a policy, a facilitator to guide our discussions. But make it very clear to the facilitator, our goal is to come up with one that we can really put all our efforts into. And frankly, you know, that may take some extra time, some extra consultant time and cost, but we really focus on our priority. But there's some other things out there that we've talked about, but have kind of slipped away. And I think we just need to go back and figure out what do we want to capture all those and put them in some kind of order. And some of those are probably not as staff consuming as others, but maybe some more air consuming stuff, but at least have that discussion about all these other little items that have floated around that we want to capture and prioritize. And maybe they're not. Maybe times have changed. We can drop it forever.
So I hear from Kelly and Dan that you kind of want to retreat. Do y'all want to retreat? Do you want me to organize that, or would you rather just do it yourselves and lead something like that?
You should probably do a retreat with the facilitator
I agree.
to get things aligned.
Okay, so we work through that.
I agree.
Okay.
Would we be able to have staff presentations? Specifically, I'm talking about Debbie's budgeting presentation she mentioned last month about how, there's actually a way we have flexibility in scheduling that we can support policy changes as they come.
Yes, and AWC is the one who put on the workshop, and I would recommend them using them as a facilitator.
Okay. Any other council remarks this evening?
Deepest appreciation to our mayor and the staff, regardless of my accent, my awkwardly executed wanting to open up a conversation about something. I do deeply appreciate every single one of you.
Thank you. Any announcements from anyone? Nothing coming up. See Mr. BC in the back regarding the upcoming historic tours. And then our next meeting is, the next meeting of Millwood City Council, the regular meeting is March 12th, 2024, a Tuesday at 6 p.m. And so at this time, with no further business before the council, I seek a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.